Part 4. Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 31. Master Chen was asking very seriously, and he even took a chance on Yu Pin Mi, a good cigarette that he was reluctant to smoke. Unexpectedly, Master Gao took a plum and sniffed it under his nose, and immediately smelled the smell of the old man's sweat. It was so smoky that he almost threw it away if he didn't think it was a good smoke. So when he responded to Lao Chen, he seemed a little careless. How about you wait a little longer and see how many of these jobs he can get? As a result, Master Chen really thought about it. It wasn't until he saw Lao Gao's smile that he couldn't help but expand. Then he stood up angrily and said, "I believe you, Lao Gao." Compared to the sweat-smelling Yupin plum given to Lao Gao, when Master Chen found Wu Wei, he gave him a brand new, unopened Yupin plum. It's well sealed inside and out. Naturally there is no sweat smell. When Wu Wei saw that old Chen was bleeding so much, he was curious. "Master Chen, if you have anything to say, just tell me." "Why?" Before he finished speaking, Master Chen stuffed Yu Pin Mi into his pocket and said, "Actually, it's not a big deal, Master Wu. I just want to work with you next time." Wu Wei immediately laughed, took out a plum blossom, slapped it back into old Chen's hand and said, "Master Chen, even if you don't tell me, I will continue to use you. You don't have to do this with me." When Master Chen heard this, he was overjoyed and excited. No matter what, he wanted to give the package of plums to Wu Wei. "You said you did this?" In the end, Wu Wei had no choice but to accept it. After work that night, it was already dark. When Wu Wei was leaving, old man Zheng sent him out and said, "I'm going to visit your store at noon." Old Song of the store at the East End is the head of the purchasing department. He is relatively easy to talk to, but his wife may be difficult to deal with, so you should handle it carefully. Chief of the Quality Inspection Department of Zitu Laotang, he is picky and ruthless, and he often offends people. If the negotiation fails, don't be angry, he is just like that. As for Lao Sun in the West, the two knives in the factory are just dog meat buns, which cannot be put on the table. In one sentence, he explained all the situations of the three families. Old man Zheng can be considered as doing his best. Wu Wei quickly refilled a cigarette for old man Zheng to express his gratitude, using the Yu Pin Mi gift given by old Chen. "Hearing what you said, I knew it in my heart." Old man Zheng didn't refuse, and took the flue and said, "You work hard, we are all in the meat factory, and we all have money. We are really famous for our work, and the bits and pieces of work will be enough for you to work for a while." After bidding farewell to old man Zheng, Wu Wei turned around and handed the 28 big bar in his hand to Yang Chiao and said, "You go practice driving and wait for me. I'll get some practice here." Yang Chiao, who had been silent all this time, was delighted when he heard this. He pushed the car happily, and with a few steps, he got on the car lightly. Those long legs were really easy to use. Wu Wei withdrew his gaze and went straight to Section Chief Song's house. As soon as he arrived at the door, he saw Section Chief Song's daughter-in-law Zhang Yan coming out to welcome her. She quickly walked a few steps and said, "Sister Zhang, how could I bother you to come out to greet her? Is Section Chief Song back?" Zhang Yan pointed inside and said, "What a coincidence, I just got home." Upon hearing this, Wu Wei took out the Yu Pin Mi that he had just put into his pocket. Before entering, he didn't forget to inquire, "Sister Zhang, I've been working all day and I'm covered in sweat. How about we talk in the yard?" An ordinary polite word directly made Zhang Yan look at Wu Wei's attentiveness with admiration. No, come in and blow the fan, sit down and chat slowly, I'll go cook and stay for dinner later." Wu Wei said continuously, "Sister Zhang, please don't be busy. Building a house is such a big thing. How can we do it without your opinion?" While talking, Wu Wei followed Jiang Yan into the house. I saw Section Chief Song, a fat man in a white shirt, blowing an electric fan on the sofa. Being able to gain so much weight these days shows how good the welfare of the meat factory is. Seeing Chief Song trying to get up, Wu Wei quickly walked a few steps. Chief Song, don't get up. As he spoke, he scattered the extracted plum blossoms and said, smoke me a cigarette. Section Chief Song really couldn't get up, but he took the cigarette. Jiang Yan had no choice but to explain, he is fat. If he moves even a little bit, he will be covered in sweat. Wu Wei nodded, made a stab, lit the match, bent down and handed it over. After Section Chief Song got angry, he stood up straight and lit the cigarette in his mouth. By this time Jiang Yan had already sat down next to Section Chief Song. Wu Wei sat directly on the single sofa next to him. Chief Song, Sister Jiang, do you plan to directly add a second floor, or do you want to tear it down and start over? At noon, Jiang Yan avoided answering this question. The top priority at this time is to figure this out before deciding how to talk next. As a result, Section Chief Song glanced at his wife and said, our house was built 7 or 8 years ago. 7 or 8 years ago, when I first joined the meat factory, my family was not as rich as Master Zheng. So this bungalow can be built, right? Many places are unsatisfactory. Wu Wei understood it as soon as he heard it, then tear it down and start over and build a small foreign-style building. Upon hearing this, Jiang Yan's eyes gleamed and she said, Master Wu, can you build a small foreign-style building? Just like the one on TV. Wu Wei didn't know what the small foreign-style building Jiang Yan saw on TV looked like. But the drawings of the small foreign-style building in his mind can be said to be everything, and they can definitely satisfy a middle-aged woman like Jiang Yan. So he nodded confidently and said, let's do this. I'll walk around the yard for a while, measure the dimensions, and then go back and draw a few drawings of the small Western-style building for you two to choose from. Jiang Yan became more and more excited, you know several more. Wu Wei smiled and flicked the ash from his cigarette and said, the small Western-style building is nothing more than making adjustments to the internal structure on the basis of ensuring the stability of the structure. But no matter how many changes, the essence remains the same, and one thing can lead to 100 things. This time, even Section Chief Song nodded repeatedly, Master Wu, what you said is very skillful. Being a bricklayer is really a waste of talent. Jiang Yan couldn't wait to say, then I'll take you around the front and back of the house and measure it. The measurement of the land is very fast. Wu Wei's footsteps are like a ruler. After following Jiang Yan around inside and outside, the length and width are basically clear in mind. After finishing all this, he turned around and said goodbye to Section Chief Song on the sofa. As a result, Section Chief Song insisted on getting up from the sofa to see him off. With a few words, the market rose. Waving goodbye to Section Chief Song and Jiang Yan, Wu Wei saw Yang Qiao riding a bike and circling nearby. When she got closer, she raised her hand and said, let's go around again. There are still 2 houses to go. At Section Chief Tang's house in the west, Wu Wei was extremely careful after being reminded by Old Man Zheng. But it turned out to be surprisingly smooth. When Section Chief Tang heard that Section Chief Song's family was going to tear down the small Western-style building and rebuild it, he immediately decided to do the same. The only requirement was that they couldn't be outdone by Section Chief Song's family. Wu Wei could tell that these 2 people didn't get along well and were competing with each other everywhere. Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 32. However, this is none of Wu Wei's business. He just takes on projects and makes money. The last dog meat bun I went to was at Sun Erdeo's house. Wu Wei finally understood the mood of Old Man Zheng. He was a man who wanted to be first in everything, save money everywhere, and wanted to spend every penny in half. No wonder I can only work as a second-hand knife in the meat factory. It's hard to make money with this kind of people, and it's not that easy to make friends with them. In the end, among the three families, the Sun family took the most time, a full hour. In the end, Sun Erdeo just wanted to add a second floor like the Zheng family, and he had to do the cleaning work. Wu Wei didn't want to take the job at that time. After all, compared to the two-section chief small house project, this kind of cleaning work is really not very profitable. Just make money from one person. Moreover, he is currently very stretched and severely lacking in manpower. However, before finalizing the decision with the two-section chiefs, Wu Wei did not say anything. When we returned to the fence yard, it was almost 9 o'clock. Xiaochun was still working on the sewing machine under the lamp, but Zishun had been waiting at the door for a long time. While Wu Wei was eating dinner, he told his two sisters the news. Zishun immediately cheered. However, Xiaochun was excited and said with reservations, "Second brother, I'm afraid the job at the section chief's house is not that easy." Wu Wei knew what Sanmi I meant. "Don't worry, you can give me some money to buy pens and paper later, so I can plan carefully." Zishun said without knowing what was going on, "What kind of paper and pen should I buy?" "Second brother, I have plenty. The most prizes in schools these days are all kinds of paper and pens." Zishun spent a lot of money all the way to the second grade of junior high school. Wu Wei smiled, "How can you use your paper and pen?" "What I want is large format paper and a ruler for drawing construction drawings. The stable rural house, with one door and two windows, looks like a land temple. It's not difficult to build it up, and no drawings are required." But for the section chief's small foreign-style building, Wu Wei had to really dig out some useful stuff. "The wealth from the sky is coming, and we have to show our true strength to catch it." So at noon the next day, Wu Wei took advantage of his lunch break to buy drawings and rulers and pens. I asked Aunt Sun for a table, placed it under the shade of a tree, and began to write and draw pictures. The drawings and shapes of the small foreign-style building are already made. It just takes some effort to move it out of the memory deep in the mind. During this busy period, I lost track of time and even ate lunch at the table. Thanks to Old Man Zheng's house, the project is nearing completion. Only then did Wu Wei find time to spare his time and go all out to prepare drawings, construction plans and budgets. Come down for 2 days in a row. 2 drawings of small Western-style buildings are newly released. So after work ended on the night of the 10th, Wu Wei came to Chief Song's house with the drawings. Unfortunately, Section Chief Song has not returned yet. Zhang Yan is in the kitchen, busy preparing dinner. Facing Wu Wei who came to visit, Zhang Yan at first maintained her husband's dignity and said, "Why don't we wait until old Song comes back? Didn't I hear that old Han Zheng's family still has some time to go, and I didn't expect you to be so prepared, quick." When Wu Wei heard this, he rolled up the unfolded drawings again. "Okay, Sister Zhang, I'll come back after dinner." Before he finished speaking, Zhang Yan suddenly interrupted, "Wait a minute, unfold this drawing and show it to me." So Wu Wei unfolded the drawing in his hand again. Both drawings have the renderings on top and the construction drawings on the bottom. So once it is unfolded, the first thing that comes into view is the front rendering of the small Western-style building. Although he is only good at pencil drawing, as an old bricklayer, Wu Wei's painting skills are definitely above the standard. As soon as Zhang Yan saw the whole picture, she liked it from the bottom of her heart. He quickly wiped his hands on the apron around his waist, took it and said, "Let me take a closer look." Zhang Yan saw that he was not Wu Wei's painter. It is the style of the small Western-style building shown in Wu Wei's paintings. Although it has 1 door and 2 windows, the staggered design from front to back, the style of the herringbone porch, the balcony on the 2nd floor, and the terrace on the 3rd floor all make it look like the Republic of China-style mansion of a wealthy family as written in the book. As the section chief's wife, Zhang Yan, Who hasn't dreamed of becoming a noble lady? Jiang Yan was entranced when she saw it. Until Wu Wei reminded, Sister Jiang, the pot is burnt. Only then did Jiang Yan come to her senses, stuffed the drawings into Wu Wei's arms, rushed into the kitchen and turned off the fire. Half the pot of braised pork was burnt, which was a pity. But Jiang Yan's mood was not affected at all. After coming out of the kitchen, he moved Wu Wei directly into the room and said, "Tell me carefully how to build such a small foreign-style building and how much it will cost." Wu Wei hesitantly reminded, "Sister Jiang, Section Chief Song is not back yet." Jiang Yan smiled slightly, "To be honest, Master Wu, I have the final say on this matter. I came to the architecture station several times before, and I was not satisfied with the small building I designed, so I found you. I fell in love with your drawing at a glance. But you have to tell me how such a small building can be built strong and beautiful." After saying that, he didn't forget to say, "Hello, do you want to smoke?" Wu Wei waved his hand quickly, "Business matters, Sister Jiang, let me talk to you first." As he spoke, he unfolded the second drawing and said from a bird's eye view, "Sister Jiang, look at the layout of this small Western-style building. It is staggered and unique. How to build it solidly and securely is indeed the top priority. I plan to use a brick concrete structure in this regard, and support the entire small building through ground beams, ring beams, and structural columns. In addition, the windows are directly made of aluminum alloy doors and windows, and large pieces of glass are cut, which are bright and grand. And the floor can be made of terrazzo, which is beautiful and easy to maintain. Of course, Sister Jiang, if you want to use wooden floors and floor tiles, I can do it too. But the budget is probably a little higher." Jiang Yan became more and more excited as she listened. Master Wu in front of her looked young, but she didn't expect him to really understand. As expected, men are still better when they are young. The plans brought out by the old technicians in the construction station all have a taste of old-fashioned and outdated. Just then, the sound of Section Chief Song greeting his neighbors came from outside. Jiang Yan stood up with the drawings in her hand and said, "It's just right that old Song is back. Let him take a good look at the people I found and see how good their skills are." Wu Wei also stood up with her. Not long after, Section Chief Song entered the room and took a first-class plum from Wu Wei. After taking it, his wife Jiang Yan interrupted him and said, "Don't smoke yet, look at the blueprint of Master Wu, how beautiful it is. This is the dream house I want." Section Chief Song smiled harmlessly at Wu Wei, then put the cigarette behind his ear and started to look at the blueprint. "You don't know until you see it, and you'll be shocked. Wow, this guy is talented. No wonder Lao Zhang praised this guy in the factory. Even his picky wife was conquered by him so quickly. This is really a fairy fart, extraordinary." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 33. After reading the blueprint, Section Chief Song praised Wu Wei highly. As everyone was talking, they returned to the sofa and sat down. Wu Wei took the opportunity to push the credit to Jiang Yan and said, "This is all designed according to Sister Jiang's ideas. I can only say that Sister Jiang has a really good vision in this regard." Jiang Yan was very proud. Section Chief Song then asked the key question, "In Master Wu's opinion, how much does it cost to build such a small Western-style building?" Wu Wei did not say it on the spot. Section Chief Song, "Sister Jiang, building a house has always been a matter of personal choice. Just like this floor, whether it is terrazzo or wooden floor, the price difference is not small. But I estimate that 10,000 yuan should cover it. I will go to the building materials market and compare prices from 3 stores, and then give you a definite number." Jiang Yan was relieved when she heard this. 10,000 yuan was still within her budget. As for Section Chief Song, he was fat to begin with, and it was hard to tell whether he was relieved or not. But after hearing this, he took off the Upinmi behind his ear. Wu Wei quickly took out a match, lit it, and handed it over. Seeing the two old men lighting up their cigarettes, Zhang Yan frowned, but did not delay in talking about business. Then Master Wu, our small Western-style building project will be completely entrusted to you. Wu Wei took down the cigarette. No problem, Section Chief Song, Sister Zhang, I'll take care of it. Then he asked, Section Chief Song, Sister Zhang, when do you plan to start work? Section Chief Song was busy smoking and did not answer. Let his wife Zhang Yan decide. I heard that Lao Zheng's work will be completed in a few days. Once his work is completed, we will start. Then without waiting for Wu Wei to respond, he continued, these 2 days, Lao Song and I will pack up and move to the factory to live temporarily, so that you can make room. It was a seamless connection. Wu Wei had no problem and agreed immediately, okay, I will arrange it in the next 2 days. I will find people and order materials. The matter was settled. Wu Wei gave Section Chief Song another plum, then stood up and said, Section Chief Song, Sister Zhang, I will go home first. Zhang Yan said politely, it's so late, stay for dinner. No, no, Wu Wei said as he walked out, I have something else to do. Section Chief Song saw this and reminded his wife, you take some of my cigarettes and wine to Master Wu. In terms of etiquette, the section chief of the purchasing department is indeed more thoughtful. Zhang Yan was reminded and hurried back to the house to get it. Wu Wei wanted to leave, but was pulled by Section Chief Song to gossip and couldn't get away. Not long after, Zhang Yan came out with 2 hungtashan and 2 bottles of Xinghua Village Fenjiu, all in a net bag. It was obvious that it was a gift from others to Section Chief Song. Wu Wei couldn't refuse, so he had to take it and left with thanks. After leaving the Song family, Wu Wei handed a net bag of cigarettes and alcohol to Yang Qiao, who was pushing the cart. Yang Qiao was so scared that she quickly hugged it in her arms, fearing that it would fall to the ground and spit, which would be a pity. Then, Wu Wei held the drawings, walked a few steps quickly, and went straight to Section Chief Tang's house. This time when he met Section Chief Tang again, this guy didn't even pretend. After taking the cigarette and lighting it, he asked directly, what kind of building does the old Song family plan to build? Wu Wei had to hold the cigarette in his mouth and slowly unfolded the set of drawings that Zhang Yan liked, without saying a word. At first, Section Chief Tang looked at it casually. He was still thinking about finding some problems and then asking Wu Wei to make some corrections to gain a psychological advantage over the Song family. As a result, when the drawings were fully unfolded in front of him, he really couldn't find any problems. Instead, the more he looked at it, the more he felt that this house was fashionable. The old woman of the Song family really has some vision. After a moment of hesitation, she finally couldn't hold back and said, I will build this style too. 2 sets of small Western-style houses of the same style are good things for Wu Wei, at least they can share materials and reduce losses. But after understanding the factual background of the 2 families tit for tat, Wu Wei also tried to comfort him, Chief Tang, why don't we take a look at the other one? This one is also very good. He hurriedly unfolded the drawings of another small Western-style house. To be honest, Chief Tang couldn't find any fault with this one and liked it very much. But then he thought about it. Isn't the reason why his family wants to follow the trend and build a house just to compete with the Song family? Since there is nothing wrong with it, then, for the sake of safety, just build the same as his Song family. This way, at least he can ensure that he will not fall behind. It is difficult for Wu Wei to understand this inexplicable competitive mentality, and of course he doesn't want to get involved. He just tried his best to ask again, Chief Tang, do you want to let my sister-in-law take a look? Chief Tang said without hesitation, I am in charge of this matter, no need to ask her. Then he threw a cigarette to Wu Wei and said, this job is left to you. By the way, when does the Song family plan to start work? Wu Wei held the cigarette in his arms, sucked his teeth and said, they plan to start work as soon as Mr. Zheng's house is completed. The same goes for my family. Then he said to the woman behind him, did you hear it? A voice came reluctantly, I heard it, I will clean up the factory dormitory tomorrow and prepare to move. Wu Wei was immediately under pressure. The two families are close to each other, and he has no problem starting work at the same time and bringing in workers. The problem is that this way, there will be a big gap in manpower. Wu Wei wiped his face. This Chief Tang really didn't listen at all. If he didn't listen, Wu Wei could only think of a way himself. Finally, after the discussion, Wu Wei stood up and said goodbye. Section Chief Tang also stood up with him, but was stopped by the woman who came out of the house and whispered something in her ear. A moment later, Wu Wei was stuffed with another net bag of cigarettes and alcohol and left the house. It was also 2 packs of cigarettes and 2 bottles of alcohol. But the cigarettes were Yupinmei and the alcohol was Jianan Chun. It was comparable to what the Song family gave. At this time, Yang Qiao came over with a 28 bar. When she saw that Wu Wei had another net bag in his hand, she immediately showed her joy and said, is this also negotiated? Looking at the pure smile on the silly girl's face, Wu Wei's heart suddenly brightened. In any case, the 2 small Western-style building projects were all taken over. A project worth nearly 20,000 yuan means at least 2,000 yuan in income. With these 2,000 yuan, let alone marrying a wife, even the Zishan brick kiln factory could be bought. So he nodded and handed over the net bag, saying, here. Yang Qiao took it carefully, hung it on the other side of the handlebar and said, are you still going to Sun's house? Wu Wei shook his head, let's go back first. I have to think about these 2 small Western-style building projects. After that, he walked forward with his head down. As a result, after walking for a long time, Yang Qiao did not catch up with him on the bike. Looking back, I saw that this silly girl was pushing the bike and following beside me. Why don't you ride it? Usually, she pedaled so hard that she almost stood up to pedal. You ride it today. Yang Qiao looked at the 2 net bags on the handlebars and said, after all, they cost hundreds of yuan. If she fell like last time, she couldn't afford to pay for it. Special thanks to the old book friend Chun Nuanzhu's who 6666 of Carpenter for the reward. I was so excited to read it when I was rushing to finish my manuscript late at night. Thank you for your support of monthly tickets and recommendation tickets. I urge you to continue reading. The story rhythm has picked up, the state is stable, and it is getting better and better. Tomorrow will be more exciting, so stay tuned. Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 34. Wu Wei took over the 28-inch bicycle, but he didn't have so many concerns. After all, he had lived 2 lives and had been an old driver for 30 or 40 years, so he rode this 28-inch bicycle. Not to mention the 2 net bags of cigarettes and alcohol hanging on the handlebars. Even if there were 2 young girls sitting on the bicycle, he would still pedal very fast. Along the way, from the family area of the meat processing factory to Baiguan Bridge, Wu Wei pedaled very fast. Occasionally, when passing a road section with few pedestrians, Wu Wei even let go of the handlebars. Yang Qiao behind him was so scared that she screamed repeatedly and hugged his waist tightly. In this way, the airbag was pushed up, so solid and exciting. It was simply irresistible. And the model seemed to be larger than Qin Ziru, who had breastfed 2 babies. Unfortunately, after passing the Baiguan Bridge, the road conditions gradually deteriorated. Wu Wei ended this exciting game with reluctance, holding the handlebars tightly and moving forward steadily. Fortunately, the embrace behind him did not loosen. He still held her tightly as before. Although this girl was silly, she was a considerate and lovely person. Back to the fenced yard. Wu Wei stuffed 2 net bags of cigarettes and alcohol into the hands of his third sister Xiaochun, and casually told her about the 2 projects. Zishun, who was standing by, jumped up excitedly and jumped directly onto Wu Wei's back. He took a shower without caring that his second brother was sweating all over. Seeing this, Xiaochun laughed and scolded, "Get off your brother quickly, you girl, don't you know your brother is tired all day?" Wu Wei put Zishun down and continued, "When these 2 projects are completed, our family will have at least 2,000 yuan in income. When the time comes, if you 2 want to add something, just ask." Wu Zishun immediately said impatiently, "Brother, I want to buy books, I want to buy a lot of books." Unfortunately, Xiaochun rejected it as soon as she finished speaking. "What books? This money should be saved for your brother to build a house and marry a wife. You girl, can you understand something?" Wu Wei said impartially, "Third sister, my brother has such great potential for development now, and his career is on the rise. It is not appropriate to marry a wife who is neither high nor low at this time." Xiaochun blurted out, "I think Xiao is good enough." Zishun said unyieldingly, "Second brother has made a way in just 1 month. In time, it is not impossible to marry sister Yuyan home. What do you know?" "Humph, I know everything." "Silly girl, I don't bother to care about you." Xiaochun left a word and went into the house to serve food and dishes. Zishun secretly hugged Wu Wei and said, "Second brother, I support you to marry sister Yuyan." Wu Wei smiled, but didn't say anything more. No words were spoken all night, and the next morning. Before Wu Wei went to Zheng Laohan's house as usual, he stopped at the Baiguan Bridge. Since he won the 2 small Western-style building projects of the Song and Tang families, the shortage of manpower has become his imminent problem. Wu Wei has always been used to preparing for a rainy day. Seeing that the work of Zheng Laohan's family will be completed in 3 or 2 days. We can't wait until the completion of the work before recruiting soldiers and sharpening the guns before the battle. So in the next 3 or 2 days, Wu Wei plans to pass by the Baiguan Bridge to take a look and pick. If there is a suitable person, invite him first. Sure enough, Wu Wei just handed the car to Yang Qiao. A group of bricklayers and carpenters who had been waiting here for a long time swarmed up and surrounded him. Those who have cigarettes handed over cigarettes, and those who have fire handed over fire. "Wow, I have only come here to recruit people a few times, and I am so popular?" In a daze, Wu Wei took the cigarette and borrowed the light. It is inevitable to take the opportunity to ask a few questions and understand the situation, just as an interview. After asking a lot of questions, I really like to. One is surnamed Zhang, in his early 30s. The other is surnamed Wang, 35 or 6. When the 2 masters heard that the project would start in 2 or 3 days, they asked for the location and left happily. Wu Wei pushed the car and was about to leave. From the corner of his eye, he suddenly saw a familiar figure squatting at the bridge. "Brother's eye," Wu Wei exclaimed in surprise. This person was not someone else, but the 4th brother Zike from his previous life. Zike looked over and looked puzzled. It was not until Wu Wei pushed the cart towards him that he slowly stood up and said, "Are you calling me?" Wu Wei smiled and asked, "Is there anyone else here with the surname Zai?" Zike knew this, and looked at Wu Wei with a question mark in his head and said, "But this boss, I really don't know you." Wu Wei passed a Yupin Mi and said, "You are the apprentice of Master Chiao Wu, the 4th one, right?" Zike took the cigarette and said, "Yes." "Then who are you?" Wu Wei lit a match and said, "I am from the same village as Master Chiao Wu, my name is Wu Wei. I wanted to become Master Chiao's apprentice a while ago, but Master Chiao refused to accept me." This is really possible. Zai knew his master's temper, and he really didn't accept apprentices easily. The two of them leaned over and lit a cigarette. Wu Wei then got to the point and said, "Brother Zai, if you don't have other work today, why don't you come with me?" Zai asked in confusion, "Didn't you just recruit everyone?" "Recruit everyone?" Wu Wei shook his head and said, "How can it be that easy?" Then he said jokingly, "I'm in urgent need of people for the work I'm doing now. I'm counting on Brother Zai, can you invite Master Wu and his disciples to come out?" Zai was immediately curious, how big of a job is it that requires so many people? Wu Wei said the same thing, "So come with me to have a look. Even if Senior Brother Zai doesn't think highly of me, it will only waste half a day's effort." "Let's go," Zai said simply, "it's unlikely that we can get a job today anyway." Before Wu Wei picked someone, several groups of people had come to ask for people. Zai didn't get any of them. He felt that he had all the skills, but he didn't use them in the right place. He was feeling depressed. As for this cheap junior brother in front of him, he was well-spoken and had a beautiful young wife. It's no big deal to follow him. You won't suffer any loss if you go, and you won't be fooled if you go. So Zai pushed out the rusty Forever bike and followed Wu Wei's brand new and shiny 28-bar bike after smoking half of a cigarette. Riding all the way to the living area of the meat processing factory, Zai smelled the smell of meat in the air. Good boy, this is the rich area. These days, people who can eat meat every day are considered rich. Arrived at the door of Zheng Laohan's house. Zai looked up and saw that the work was almost finished. Who was in urgent need of help? Someone to warm the pot or warm the house? Wu Wei parked the car and greeted Master Gao and Master Chen, who arrived earlier. Then he pulled Zai, who was full of doubts, and said, "Brother Zai, it must not be this job that we are looking for you for, but for the other two families." Zai calmed down a little, but still asked calmly, "What are the specific jobs for the two families?" Wu Wei pointed at the Song family and then the Tang family. "Look, do you see? Those two families will be demolished and rebuilt, and each will build a 2.5-story small Western-style building. Who would marry into the family after being reborn?" Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 35. Ah! This time Zai really didn't hold back. "It's just a small Western-style building, but there are actually two of them." Wu Wei took the opportunity to take out the drawings he had brought with him, unfolded them in front of Zai and said, "Look, Senior Brother Zai, I have drawn all the drawings, and there is a lot of work." Zai looked at the drawings and murmured, "There is indeed a lot of work. These ground beams, these ring beams, and these structural columns are all labor-intensive and time-consuming work." Just then, Old Man Zheng was pushing his car and was passing by at work. He saw Wu Wei and was about to say hello. As a result, his eyes fell on the drawings first, and he couldn't help but ask, "Master Wu, do you also understand drawings?" Wu Wei smiled and nodded, "Be a little more knowledgeable, Mr. Zheng. These are the drawings for the homes of Section Chief Song and Tang." Old Man Zheng was moved in his heart and asked, "Then do you know how to build a factory?" "Yes, it's not difficult to build a factory," Wu Wei blurted out, "but Mr. Zheng, don't tease me. The meat factory building, isn't that all the work of the construction station?" Old Man Zheng shook his head and said, "The construction station is in a rough state now. The reputation of the meat factory is bad anyway." Then the conversation changed, "But when it comes to building a factory building in the factory, the most I can do is recommend you. The final decision must be made by the factory director himself." Wu Wei quickly put out a cigarette and said, "Master Zheng, no matter whether it can be done or not, I thank you first." Old Man Zheng waved his hand, "It's a small matter, let's go." After watching Old Man Zheng get into the car and leave, Wu Wei turned around and saw Zai looking at him blankly. "I waited eagerly at Baiguan Bridge for a long time, but didn't get any work. On Wu Wei's side, people were asked to go up poles to their homes and factories to invite him. It's really like drought leads to drought and waterlogging leads to death. Is there any more heavenly justice? With emotion, Zai simply made up his mind not to leave. Junior brother Wu, look, can I stay today? Wu Wuxin said, there is no way you can leave if you want to. Immediately he said happily, I can't ask for it, senior brother Zai. This enthusiasm and respect immediately impressed Zai. Zai nodded and said as if he had made great determination, don't worry, I will do a good job. Just watch it. After saying that, he looked away from the drawing. He turned around and took out the handy tile knife and mud trowel from the tool bag hanging on the large bumper of the car. He walked straight into Zheng's yard, built scaffolding, and climbed up to the second floor. Get ready to join the ranks of painting walls and plastering. An experienced craftsman has a clear eye for work and knows where he is needed, so he does not need to make too many arrangements at all. Then Wu Wei also put away the drawings and followed closely behind. Directly contracted another wall next to Zai. Soon, Zai saw the clues. Although the bricklaying techniques are similar, there is nothing too advanced in technical content. But each master has its own characteristics. These characteristics are reflected in the details such as techniques and habits. Zai took a quick look. Wu Wei's wall painting techniques and habits are basically the same as his own. Could it be that his master, really secretly accepted such a close disciple behind the backs of his fellow disciples and fellow disciples? Although confused, Zai didn't think much about it. As long as there is work to do and money to make. Don't say he said he was junior brother, even if he said he was master. Master can't. Even if he says he is grandpa, he will admit it. It's noon in a blink of an eye. On both sides of the Zheng family, a car came to the door of the Song family and the Tang family. One is the Great Liberation and the other is the Great Leap Forward. It's true. Not only that, the driver also came down to help carry the luggage. At first glance, the owner's family seems to have a high status. Zai was watching and fanning himself when he saw Wu Wei patting his butt and getting up and walking over. Sister Zhang, do you want to help? Zhang Yan dressed up happily, as if she had made a special ceremony for moving. Seeing Wu Wei appear, he said with joy, no, I've called someone. But Master Wu, my little dream of a foreign mansion is all about you, don't make a straw nest for me. Wu Wei said confidently, that's impossible, Sister Zhang. Don't say you're not happy, I won't allow this to happen. Okay, Zhang Yan was satisfied, then I'll wait. After the Song family greeted them, Wu Wei took the opportunity to leave. He turned around and ran to the Tang family to express his condolences. Section Chief Tang is not at home, but his mother-in-law still knows that she behaves according to the Song family. Since the Song family doesn't want help, then the Tang family doesn't need help. After Wu Wei said hello, he felt at ease and went back to rest under the shade of the tree. But Zai, who witnessed this scene, became more and more convinced. It seems that the project of these two small Western-style buildings is confirmed to be real. I immediately made up my mind to go straight to Master's house after work today. No matter what, he must be invited to come out. The busy day goes by in a flash. Especially for Zai, this is much faster than squatting at the Baiguan Bridge for a day. When work was about to end, Zai saw two trucks of prefabricated blocks, thick and heavy, hauled in front of his house in the west. I couldn't help but be surprised. With red bricks becoming so popular these days, why do people still use prefabricated blocks that are cumbersome and troublesome? Isn't it said that the meat factory has good benefits and high remuneration? After being surprised, Wu Wei suddenly rushed over. Seeing that, Zai hurried to follow. Although this junior brother is not a junior brother, the status has not been confirmed. But Wu Wei is the foreman, and he must protect the one who pays him. When the two arrived, they saw a skinny old man jumping off the car. There was no one else except the dog meat buns and Sun Erdeo. When Wu Wei appeared, he couldn't help but show off and pointed at the prefabricated blocks on the two cars and said, "Master Wu, how is it? The materials I got specially are cheap and durable. It's more than enough to add a second floor, right?" Without waiting for Wu Wei to reply, Zai couldn't help but complain in his heart, "Is this old man okay? Can prefabricated blocks be used to add a second floor? Let alone the difficulty of the construction, the structure and foundation of this floor, whether it can hold up, are all problems." Sure enough, the next moment, Wu Wei said bluntly, "Master Sun, if you insist on using prefabricated blocks, then I really can't take this job. You should find someone else." Sun Erdeo immediately jumped up and said, "Master Wu, do you think that no one else can build a house except you? Young man, I advise you not to be too angry." Wu Wei smiled and turned away. No entanglement. On the contrary, Zai couldn't help but retort, "If you are not angry, are you still a young man? It's okay that the owner doesn't know the business. Not knowing the business, but still meddling and giving blind orders. This job is really impossible to do." After Zai finished speaking, he turned around and followed Wu Wei. Leaving Sun Erdeo standing there in a daze, he said angrily, "I asked the construction team of the construction station to build it. Do you really think that without you, Wu the butcher, we will have to eat hairy pigs? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Who would marry into the family after being reborn?" Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 36. Come back from Sun's house. Wu Wei ran into Old Man Zheng, who was coming back from get off work. Old Man Zheng was originally in a hurry, but when he saw Wu Wei's face and then looked at Sun Erdeo, who was jumping behind him, he immediately understood. "Did that dog meat bun cause trouble for you again?" Wu Wei nodded and said with a wry smile, "Master Sun wants to use those prefabricated blocks to build a second floor." Old Man Zheng didn't seem surprised at all and said, "If you ask me, you should not take this job. You indulged him this time, who knows what kind of trouble he will do to you next time." Wu Wei hummed and said, "Master Zheng, your house will be completed in the next 2 days. When you marry your daughter-in-law tomorrow, you must invite me to the wedding. I want to share in the joy. After all, I haven't found a daughter-in-law yet." Taking the initiative to bring up this matter is actually to repay the Zheng family a gift. To express the hospitality and care of Old Man Zheng inside and outside. Old Man Zheng waved his hand and said, "Let's not talk about that first. I'm telling you, I've talked to Director Wan. He meant that you have to go there and take a look before you can make a decision. This is actually a possibility." Wu Wei immediately took out cigarettes and passed them to the other party, saying, "Master Zheng, you really helped me a lot. I'm determined to drink this wedding wine at your house." Old Man Zheng took the cigarette, but did not take credit for it and said, "I didn't help you much. Whether you can get it or not depends on your own ability." Wu Wei lit a match and toasted him, saying, "Master Zheng, no matter how capable you are, it's useless without your help." Zai on the side was completely stunned. He just turned down a small job of adding a second floor, and now he's going to build a factory building? This junior brother who suddenly appeared out of nowhere, could he be the Monkey King who jumped out of a stone? No one in heaven or on earth can do more than him. After finishing a cigarette with Old Man Zheng, Wu Wei refilled it with another one and said goodbye. The aroma of the food at home was wafting out. If he didn't leave, would he really wait for Old Man Zheng to treat him to a drink and a meal? That would be immature. But today, I was going back with my senior brother Zai. Along the way, not only did Wu Wei ride the bike, but Yang Chiao, who was riding the bike, also became more reserved. The two brothers talked and laughed along the way. The journey of more than 20 miles passed very quickly. When they arrived at the intersection of Daowen village, Wu Wei was about to wave goodbye to Zai. But he saw Zai turn the handlebars and followed him into Daowen village. Seeing Wu Wei looking over, Zai smiled and said, "I'm going to Master's house to sit down." Wu Wei understood and was happy to see it happen. Just looking at Zai, who had nothing but a tool bag in his hands, he said in surprise, "Brother Zai, are you going to go empty-handed like this? Aren't you afraid that the master will kick you out?" Although this was said in a joking tone, it also reminded Zai. Zai slapped his forehead, "I'm so stupid. Then I'll go home first and come back." Unexpectedly, the next moment, Wu Wei called him directly and said, "Don't bother, brother Zai, I'll get you something." Zai also spoke quickly, "Okay, I'll lend it to you." As he spoke, the two cars drove down the village road together and drove to the gate of the fenced courtyard. Zai propped up the car body with his feet and took a look. This family is really poor. 3 old and dilapidated main rooms, plus the kitchen in the east room that was so low that the door was blackened. Even De Huang, who was guarding the door, was so thin that his ribs were exposed. Xiaochun and Zishun ran out directly. Zai felt even more sympathetic when he saw it. There were 2 younger sisters who needed dowry. It was even more difficult. Unexpectedly, after the 2 sides greeted each other, Zai saw the net bag that Xiaochun brought out. 2 first-class plums and 2 bottles of Jianan Shun. Wow! These are all daily gifts? What kind of family dares to be so generous? It was ridiculous that I just sympathized with Wu Wei. How could I forget that he had 2 small Western-style building projects and a factory project that was about to be completed? Picking up the net bag, Zai weighed it. I couldn't help but complain in my heart, "It seems that I am the poor one." Picking up the net bag, he said goodbye to Wu Wei. Zai turned onto the village road and headed straight to the Chiao family courtyard at the west end. Along the way, the front of the car was heavy. Zai had never been so straight-backed. When he arrived at the Chiao family courtyard, his master's wife Chen Yuejuan was serving dishes to the table. Chiao Yuyan, who was as graceful as a city dweller, helped from the side. As soon as he entered the door, Zai, holding a net bag, called out loudly, "Master's wife, Yuyan, where is my master?" Chen Yuejuan looked back at Zai and said, "At the third brother's house." Then she complained, "You said you would come, but it's not a festival, why bring a gift?" Chiao Yuyan took the gift with a smile, and then looked at the fourth brother's righteous look, and couldn't help but teasing with a smile, "Mom, the fourth brother has made a fortune, and the gift he gave is more expensive than the one given during the Chinese New Year." While speaking, Chiao Wei walked out of the secretary's hall. He ran over with his hands behind his back and said, "It's rare to see you bleed so much. What, you can't live like this in the future?" Zai saw that he couldn't hide it. There was no way, the master's family knew him too well. So she smiled and said, Master's wife, today I am offering flowers to the Buddha." Mr. Chiao Wu came closer and said, "What do you mean? Whose flowers are you borrowing?" While speaking, he took the wash basin and towel from his daughter and said, "Come and wash your hands, let's eat and chat." Zai rubbed his hands and said, "I am also envious of master's wife's cooking." The master and apprentice washed their hands and walked to the main hall together. Zai asked first, Master's wife, are the second and third brothers not at home?" Chen Yuejuan put her chopsticks and said, "The second son is eating at his own home, and you know the third son, he is playing outside and never comes home." Zai was not surprised. After all, during the years as an apprentice, he knew the temperaments of the master's 2 sons very well. The family of 3, including Zai, sat down. Seeing Xiao Yuyan take out the local decubi, Zai Ke immediately suggested, "Master, try the Jiananshan I brought." Xiao Wei glanced at the net bag and agreed, "As you wish." Then, while the apprentice was opening the wine and pouring the wine, he continued the previous topic and said, "You haven't told me yet, where did such a heavy gift come from?" Zai Ke carefully filled the 2 3-cent cups of the master and apprentice. When the aroma of wine filled his nose, he said, like offering a treasure, "So many cigarettes and alcohol, but they are all borrowed from your master's close disciple." Xiao Wei frowned, "How can I have a close disciple? The last one to enter is you, right?" Zai Ke asked, "Master, you really didn't hide it from our brothers and sisters, and accepted close disciples outside?" Xiao Wei glared, "If you want to accept a disciple, then accept a disciple. It's an open and above-board thing. Why would I hide it from you brothers and sisters?" At this time, Xiao Yuyan's heart moved. "Fourth brother, you didn't borrow these cigarettes and alcohol from brother Wu Wei's house, did you?" Thanks to Hengdao Gaiku for the 1500 reward, and thank you book friends 2021030110526081451 for the reward. Thanks to Yanzu for the monthly ticket and recommendation ticket. Thanks for reading, thank you. Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 37. As soon as these words came out, they immediately exceeded everyone's expectations. Only Zai Ke gave a proud thumbs up and said, "Yuyan is really smart as ice and snow, and she deserves to be a top student." Xiao Yuyan hit the mark and immediately looked at the net bag. Lose, lose. This is brother Wu Wei's first gift to his family. But fifth master Xiao said in disbelief, "Fourth, tell me clearly. How is this possible? Your wife and I know better than you what is going on in his family." Zai Ke picked up the wine cup and made a toast, "Master, after 3 days of separation, you should look at each other with admiration. Speaking of which, let's finish the glass of wine with master." Then he continued, "Master, are you really sure that you know the situation in Wu Wei's family better than I do? I have been working with him all day today." Hearing this, Xiao Wei drank the wine in his glass, put down the wine cup, and felt a sudden change in his heart. Thinking of my precious daughter running to Wu's house every now and then, I couldn't help but murmur. Could it be that it was really a 3-day separation, so I looked at him with admiration. Of course, doubts are doubts, and the master's style still needs to be managed. Everyone in the village knows that he has only been working in the city for less than a month. What future can he have? While Zai Ke was pouring wine for his master, he said with great joy, "Master, master, I tell you, Wu Wei is in the city now, so he has a lot to eat. People in the city recognize his craftsmanship, and they build houses and small buildings at home. Everyone, look for him." Mr. Chiao picked up a piece of fried peanut, threw it into his mouth and said, "It's all hard-earned money, how much can you achieve?" Zai Ke also picked up a peanut, threw it into his mouth, chewed it and said, "Master, master, do you know how he found me?" Fifth Master Chiao was anxious, "Just say it properly. Can you stop asking so many questions?" Xiao Yuyan covered her mouth and wanted to snicker. This fourth senior brother likes to titillate people's appetites. He has been an apprentice at home since he was a child, and he was often beaten because of this. Zai Ke quickly put down his chopsticks and said seriously, "Wu Wei has just taken over the project of 2 small foreign-style buildings and there is not enough manpower. He found me at the Baiguan Bridge this morning." Mr. Chiao Wu raised his eyebrows. The 2 small Western-style buildings were indeed pretty good. But it was still not to the point where his old man looked at him differently. Unfortunately, his daughter-in-law, Chen Yuejuan, couldn't stand it anymore, and she nodded repeatedly, while the eyes of her precious daughter, Xiao Yuyan, shone brightly. Zai Ke continued, "Master, master, These two small foreign-style buildings are not ordinary small buildings. I have never seen that style in our county. At first glance, it looks like something in a movie. And these two small Western-style buildings are expensive to build, almost 10,000 yuan each. The key is that the two owners recognize him and insist on him. He didn't even get the construction station to come to his door. Zike said so much about the bamboo slips pouring beans into the ground. Master is a family of 3, but each has his or her own concerns. Xiao Yuyan took a quick look and realized that for a 20,000 yuan project, the 5 large tile-roofed houses her father wanted could be completed together. I was secretly happy. Chen Yuejuan was confused. The small foreign-style houses in the movie were all foreign-styled, and the old man had never overshadowed them. Only Mr. Chiao Wu heard the clue and said, "It's not easy to build a small Western-style building. The layout of the apartments is nice, but the problems with the structural walls are huge." He's such a smooth-talking boy. If he dares to take on such a project, isn't he afraid that he won't be able to grasp it? Zike waved his hand and said, "Master, I saw the drawings he drew. The floor beams, ring beams, and structural columns were designed clearly, and there is nothing wrong with them at all." After hearing this, 5th Master Chiao finally couldn't sit still. "You said he can draw drawings. Did he draw all the drawings of the small foreign building himself?" Zike nodded without thinking and said, "Yes, Master. He also drew 2 sets, and both owners chose one set. In my opinion, the other set is also pretty good." After saying that, Zike raised the cup again. This time, 5th Master Chiao was a little drunk. "Good guy, this guy is hiding his secrets. Even the drawings are clear, let alone the craftsmanship with no barriers." Zike put down the wine cup and touched the chopsticks, only to see his master in a daze. "Master, what's wrong? What's the problem?" 5th Master Chiao came to his senses and asked immediately, "You have studied with me for so many years, can you draw drawings?" Zike looked embarrassed and said, "Master, apprentice, I am too stupid. I can only read but not draw." He can read blueprints, and he is considered top-notch among bricklayers. As for being able to draw blueprints, he is definitely the best among the bricklayers. Just like Xiao Yuyan who went from the countryside to study in the city, she was a golden phoenix flying out of the chicken coop. Can be met but not sought. Thinking of this, Zike suddenly felt relieved. "Master, I have always felt that his craftsmanship is in the same vein as what you taught us. It is very similar. But I didn't realize that he would actually draw the drawings and design the small foreign-style building himself. Hey, I worked with him for a day, but I didn't grasp the point." 5th Master Chiao said with emotion, "I don't blame you. Among the 4 of you brothers, none of you can draw drawings. You don't have this awareness at all, and it's normal that you don't notice it." Then the conversation changed. Looking at it this way, it's not surprising that this guy Wu Wei can take on such a large foreign-style building project. Xiao Yuyan snorted proudly, "I told you a long time ago that brother Wu Wei is very powerful, but you don't believe it. Now you admit that you can look at people through the cracks in the door and look at the sky from the well, right?" As soon as she finished speaking, Chen Yuejuan scolded her, "Did you say that about your parents?" Xiao Yuyan stuck out her tongue. Then Zike continued to throw out the explosive news, "Master, in addition to these 2 small Western-style buildings, the meat processing factory also has a factory project, and they are also planning to ask him. In my opinion, this job is almost certain." Xiao Wei picked up the wine cup and drank it all, saying, "Then you should work hard with him, this guy has some skills." Zike followed and drank the wine. In a moment, he filled the bottle and said, "Don't, Master. Master Wu has 3 projects and is short of manpower. He entrusted me to come here and asked you to bring your fellow apprentices to help." Listening to this, it can be regarded as giving enough face to the old man. Others don't know, but Chen Yuejuan, as his wife, knows it clearly. The old man is idle at home, not because he is closed to visitors and doesn't take any work. It's just that in recent years, there are really no big jobs in the countryside. The old man just can't get interested. It was not easy to come across such an opportunity. It would be a lie to say that he was not interested. Unexpectedly, the next moment, Master Chiao Wu really waved his hand and said, "Since that kid has designed the drawings, why should I come out? If you are interested, call your fellow apprentices and help each other." Sure enough, this old man actually got it. Chen Yuejuan glanced at Master Chiao Wu unhappily, and winked at Zai Ke frequently. Unfortunately, the four apprentices did not have this look at all, and did not understand. Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 38. So, a meal followed. Zai Ke ate heartlessly, Chiao Yuyan ate happily, and only fifth Master Chiao ate tastelessly. Chen Yuejuan was also upset with the picture. This old man just wants to save face. I want to see how long you can last. After eating and drinking, Chiao Yuyan's third brother, Chiao Kuliang, came back wearing bell-bottom pants and big sunglasses. How can this outfit look like a pillar of the country? When Master Chiao saw it, he became very angry. He picked up the broom leaning against the door and started beating him. Zai Ke was walking up to him. He didn't care about his drunkenness and quickly stepped forward to stop him and protect him. So Chiao Kuliang didn't take a bite of food, turned around and left with a curse. When Chen Yuejuan saw this, she punched the old man to vent her anger. Chiao Yuyan gave her earnest advice again. After the old couple settled down, Zai Ke left on his bicycle. When he passed behind Wu Wei's house, he stood on the village road and shouted at the top of his lungs. When Wu Wei heard this, he knew that the fourth senior brother was drunk. He hurried to the village road. From so far away, the smell of alcohol hit my face. Ouch, fourth senior brother, how much did you and master drink? Zai Ke said nonchalantly, I drank 1 bottle. When I opened the second bottle, Yu Yan refused to get out of the way. Wu Wei put away a cigarette and asked expectantly, what did master say? Is he willing to come out and help? Zai Ke shook his head like a rattle, and even his tongue was hanging out, like a hanged man. Master is not happy, but master said that we can ask some of our brothers to come out to help. Wu Wei blurted out, how can this be done? Without master's intervention, how can I control the situation? After all, the master is not here, and these brothers are here, I am afraid they will all regard themselves as their masters. Zai Ke understood Chapai. He thought that what Wu Wei said about being unable to control the situation was because he was too young to control the situation in the project. Rather than a scene on a human face. He took a deep breath and said, if I come forward to invite master again, I'm afraid it will be very difficult for me to succeed. In my opinion, you have to do this in person. Master is very kind, and he didn't want to go in person. He agreed without hesitation, with a face on his face. Can't hang up. Wu Wei nodded when he heard this, and it made sense. Master Chiao Wei is indeed a person who cares about his appearance, otherwise he would not have raised his third son Chiao Kuliang, a rebellious son. That's right. Of course I can't go tonight, so let's do it tomorrow night. When the factory matter is decided tomorrow, I will have many reasons to ask him to come forward. Wu Wei stayed with Zai Ke for another conversation. Seeing that his speech gradually became smoother and his thinking became clearer, he let him go. At the same time, Chiao's courtyard. After dinner, Chen Yuejuan left the mess to her daughter Chiao Yuyan to clean up. He brought baskets of wool balls and knitting needles to the home of his third uncle Chiao, the branch secretary. Following the third sister-in-law, the fourth sister-in-law and the sisters-in-law, The parents chatted while busy working. So in a hurry, he mentioned that fifth master had to suffer the consequences of his death to save face, and also exaggerated Wu Wei's future in the county. The third sister-in-law's eyes lit up and she said, when the accident happened at the Zishan brick kill, I heard the child's father mentioned it when he came back, saying that Mr. Wu Da's son was a good one. If it weren't for the fact that the family was too poor and too burdened. Really helpful and helpful. The fourth sister-in-law immediately felt convinced and said, isn't that right? At that time, Mr. Wu Da was also a serious retired cotter. He had disciples all over the country and was famous. People from the county and city came to visit him. It's a pity that nowadays people are in trouble, and their family is in such a miserable state. My son is not married to a wife, and my daughter is definitely not from a good family. Who would have thought? The party secretary's wife glanced at the fourth child's house. On the one hand, he blamed her for taking the topic too far, and on the other hand, he felt that what he said was arbitrary. I somewhat blocked my mouth. Even so, after going around twice, the words came back. The party secretary still mentioned it. Yu Ejuan, why don't you find a chance to help me ask? Can you help me match up with Xiao Wu on behalf of my Jasmine? Chen Yu Ejuan's heart skipped a beat. Why don't you open which pot and pick up which pot? My daughter Yuyan is still thinking about that child. But since the third sister-in-law mentioned it, she couldn't bear it. After all, Yuyan didn't even have a single character, and there was an old man standing in the way. Moreover, Jasmine was 2 years older than her, in her 20s, so she was indeed more anxious. Okay, third sister-in-law, I'll go ask you tomorrow. It's late at night, in the Chiao family compound. Chiao Yuyan was lying on the bed, holding the only remaining bottle of Jiananshan wine in her arms. I imagined that this bottle of wine would be the first gift from him and be reserved for the wedding night. It must be very meaningful. Fortunately, during dinner, I had quick eyesight and quick hands to protect him. Otherwise, the first gift he sent would have been wasted by his father and fourth senior brother. The more Chiao Yuyan thought about it, the more beautiful it became. Holding the wine bottle, she fell asleep without knowing it. Thanks to my breasts, I was able to hold the wine bottle and prevent it from slipping and breaking. Rao is so. Before going to bed, when Chen Yu Ejuan came over to turn off the fan, she was still shocked and put away the bottle of wine and placed it on the bedside. But he murmured in confusion, "Girl, what are you doing holding a wine bottle while you sleep?" When I returned to my room, I saw my wife laying on the bed, flipping pancakes over and over. I think it's because it's hot. After the night falls in early autumn, the heat is no longer so unbearable. Maybe it's because of the alcohol. The master and the apprentice didn't drink much tonight. After eliminating 2 wrong answers, Chen Yu Ejuan suddenly became clear-headed. I told you to be arrogant just now, but now you can't get off the stage. Are you upset? You deserve it. Chen Yu Ejuan turned off the lights angrily and lay down on the bed. She tried to stay away from her husband as far as possible. Let him suffer. Although she made up her mind, Chen Yu Ejuan couldn't help it after a while. She kicked her husband and said, "If you can't sleep, go out, don't stay here to affect me." As a result, the old man really got up and went out stubbornly. When her husband was away, Chen Yu Ejuan was left alone in the room, but she couldn't sleep. After tossing and turning for a while, he finally stood up and muttered, "This old fool, I really owed him in my previous life." Getting out of bed and leaving the house, he saw Master Chiao Wu sitting quietly by the millstone in the yard. A person, sitting by the millstone, smoking a cigarette. Looks so lonely, so lonely. Chen Yu Ejuan walked over slowly, touched her husband with her shoulder and said, "Okay, I'll go to Xiao Wu's house tomorrow and ask him if he really wants to invite you." Master Chiao Wu asked in surprise, "Why are you going to his house?" Chen Yuejuan pointed at the third sister-in-law's house and said, "My third sister-in-law wants me to matchmake Jasmine and Xiao Wu, so she asked me to go and ask." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 39. Chiao Wei and his wife glared at each other. Will the third brother agree to this? Chen Yuejuan said unhappily, "Don't look at the fact that the third brother is the old branch secretary, but his thoughts are much more open-minded than you, the old stubborn one. I heard from the third sister-in-law that the brick kiln in Zishan had an accident a while ago, and the third brother came back to mention it. That kid is a good person. Now that the child has made a living in the city, it is not impossible for him to soar to the sky in time. The third brother and the third sister-in-law treat Jasmine as no less than we treat Yuyan. The third sister-in-law has this intention, isn't it, just to catch Xiao Wu, a good child?" Chiao Wei was speechless and could only find fault with the egg. Our Yuyan has already jumped out of the farm door. Although Jasmine is the daughter of the village branch secretary, isn't she still a rural household registration? Chen Yuejuan first hurriedly scolded, "Keep your voice down, be careful not to let the third brother's family hear it. After all, they all live in the same courtyard, separated by the fourth brother's family." Then he lowered his voice and retorted, "Although Jasmine has a rural household registration, with the ability of the third brother, it is not difficult to let her marry in the city and escape from the farm, right? If you ask me, you are just stubborn and stubborn. In the end, you may make our daughter regret it." Chiao Wei disagreed, "I am her father, how can I harm her? I am doing this for her good." Okay, Chen Yuejuan said impatiently, "Go back to the room and sleep, don't worry, I will definitely ask for you tomorrow." The next day was August 12th. The work at Zheng Laohan's house has reached the final stage. At most, it will take another day tomorrow. So he rushed to Zheng's house, and Wu Wei let Zai, who arrived earlier, take over his work without worry. And he took time off and went to the factory with Zheng Laohan, who was working. In fact, the meat processing factory is not far from this employee family area. But it was better to have an experienced master like old man Zheng introduce him than for a young man to rush in recklessly. Entering the meat processing plant, all kinds of smells hit him in the face. Mixed together, there was a smell of meat mixed with stench. Fortunately, the stench was very light, mostly from the livestock that had just been brought into the factory. When he arrived at the office area, even the smell of feces was gone. Wu Wei followed old man Zheng, step by step, up the stairs, and went straight to the door of the factory director's office. In the office, there was a middle-aged man in his 40s. He had a lot of hair, combed into a very aggressive hairstyle with hairspray. But at this moment, he was on the phone. So old man Zheng did not go in, but turned to Wu Wei and whispered, "This is our factory director Wan Jun." As soon as the voice fell, Wan Jun's deep voice came, "Old Zheng, what do you want to talk to me about?" Old man Zheng then turned back and went into the house and said, "Director Wan, the master Wu I mentioned to you, the young man who built a house for my family and can draw blueprints, I brought you." Wan Jun took a look. Wow, this young man is absolutely beautiful. Tall and mighty, brave and powerful, but also alert. At the same time, Wu Wei took the initiative to extend his hands and also had a good first impression of Wan Jun. Different from the stereotype of state-owned enterprise cotters in his mind, Director Wan gives people a mixed feeling. Steady, but not losing the edge. "Hello, Master Wu." "Hello, Director Wan." After shaking hands and greetings, Wan Jun came over from behind the desk and greeted old man Zheng and Wu Wei to sit on the sofa. Unexpectedly, old man Zheng said, "Well, Director, I have to go to work. You guys chat." Wang Jun immediately sent old man Zheng to the door of the office, showing the factory's respect for the old master. Looking back, he saw Wu Wei following him. So he invited him again and then sat down on the sofa. After sitting down, Wang Jun did not rush to talk about things, but took advantage of the time to light cigarettes and observe Wu Wei quietly. I heard from old Zheng that this kid came from the countryside, not only has a good craftsmanship, but also has drawings in hand. Such a young man is already a leader in the same industry. As a factory director, Wang Jun has seen a lot. These leaders in the same industry, when facing him, in similar occasions, their performances are also very different. But most of them will inevitably show the timidity that is inevitable at their age. However, Wang Jun did not see it in Wu Wei. This country boy, while full of vigor, always has a kind of steadiness that is rare for someone of his age. Yes, steady. Too steady. Good man, Lao Zheng's judgment of people is as accurate as his judgment of pigs. Wang Jun praised him secretly and finally said, Master Wu, I wonder how much did Lao Zheng tell you about the factory building? Wu Wei said calmly, Master Zheng didn't say much. He just asked me if I could draw the blueprints and introduced me here. For details, I'd like to trouble Director Wan to tell me or let me go to the site to see it. Wang Jun flicked the ash and said, the factory building I want to build is not an ordinary slaughterhouse. It is specially built to introduce an advanced ham sausage production line. At this point, Wang Jun began to explain the key words, have you heard of ham sausage? Unexpectedly, Wu Wei nodded and said, I have heard of it. It is a kind of meat product that is more convenient and easy to eat. Director Wan introduced the ham sausage production line at this time. It can be said that he is quite bold and visionary. Wang Jun suddenly became interested and said, do you also like this kind of ham sausage? Wu Wei said without hesitation, of course, Director Wan. As people's living standards improve, the gap in various meat foods will become larger and larger. The market potential in this area is huge. Listening to these words, it is too much for Wang Jun's appetite. It can be said that the entire factory recognized his proposal to build a ham sausage production line to such a high degree. Except for those sycophants. I can't even find half a person. Now Lao Zheng stretched out his hand and brought one to himself. How could he not be excited about this? In his excitement, Wang Jun shouted directly to the outside, Xiao Wang, make a pot of tea and use the good long jing. Wu Wei didn't realize it until Xiao Wang came over with a tea tray and high heels. Any little king in a meat joint factory would be a factory flower in other factories. Sure enough, the benefits are good, and we don't have to worry about the factory spending less. Of course, he discovered it, but Wu Wei did not stare at Xiao Wang. Moreover, Wang Jun took the tea tray and poured him tea himself. After pouring it, he even made a formal invitation gesture. Wu Wei picked up the tea cup, feeling really thirsty. So he raised his neck and drank it all in one gulp. After drinking, Wang Jun asked expectantly, how does this tea taste? Wu Wei was stunned for a moment and then said, to be honest with Director Wan, I am just a rough person and can't judge the quality of tea. If I drink this tea, it will be like a cow chewing peonies. It's a pity. Thanks to Han90H for the tip. Thank you Yanzu for your monthly votes and recommendation votes. Please continue to ask for votes and recommendations. It's not too much. Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 40. Hearing Wu Wei's honest answer, Wang Jun burst into laughter. This country boy is really to his liking. So much so that Wang Jun, who rarely shows favoritism, took the initiative to say, why don't you just stop being a bricklayer and come to my factory? Everything will be arranged for you. For ordinary people, this is a great thing. Wu Wei would not accept it. But he did not refuse directly, Director Wan, if you bring me in, I can introduce all my relatives. Not to mention, I have 2 sisters at home. The words were true and false. Hearing Won Jun laughing again, "You kid, if you don't like our meat processing factory, just say it directly, why are you beating around the bush with me here? It's interesting." From the director's office, a series of laughter spread to the office of the factory floor next door. The beauties in the factory immediately gathered around Xiao Wang, who had poured tea earlier, and talked about it in a flurry. Xiao Wang, tell me, who is the factory director talking to?" Yes, who dares to look down on our meat processing factory?" Faced with the sisters chattering, Xiao Wang said with a puzzled look, "Look at that guest, he doesn't look like a distinguished guest. He is dressed very ordinary, but he is really handsome, tall, and strong. Wow." For a while, the beauty's office was filled with frog sounds. The girls who were usually reserved to the bone were all eager to move. They scrambled for the opportunity to pour tea and water for the factory director, and by the way, they saw the honor of this mysterious guest. As a result, they waited for a long time. Instead of waiting for the factory director's instructions to pour tea and water, they heard the factory director and the guest get up and prepare to leave. The beauties in the factory immediately couldn't care. All of them pretended to look at the desk, but their eyes were fixed on the door, waiting for the factory director to pass by with the guest. As the footsteps approached, a tall and mighty figure passed by the door, then went down the stairs and walked away. After a while, the factory beauties came back to their senses. One after another, the voices of infatuation rang out. "He is really tall. He feels so safe. He is so polite." For a while, gossips were everywhere, and the more they talked, the more outrageous they became. But this is just a seasoning for the factory beauties during their boredom. If they really let them marry a countryman, no matter how tall, handsome, and safe he is, I am afraid that few of them would be willing. Or, none of them. This is the cruel reality of the urban-rural gap. At least it cannot be changed in the short term. On the other side, Wu Wei followed Won Jun out of the office building, bypassed a livestock processing workshop, and came to a vacant lot behind the factory. This open space is as big as 2 football fields and is full of weeds. "Xiao Wu, this is where the factory plans to build a new factory building." Wu Wei nodded and said, "Then Director Wang, can I take a simple walk and measure it?" Won Jun said happily, "You can take a look." As he said that, he accompanied Wu Wei to measure the open space. But as they walked, Won Jun discovered. This country boy seemed to walk in an ordinary way, but in fact, the distance between each step was almost the same. There was an inexplicable sense of rhythm when he raised his foot and took a step. It was just like marching in the army. Won Jun saw it with his eyes and felt it in his heart. It is said that there are top talents in all 360 trades. Some people, who are also bricklayers, are still useless even when they are in their 40s or 50s, and they can only get by one day at a time. But Xiao Wu, a country boy, is only in his early 20s, but he has already achieved such a high level. His future is definitely limitless. I was a bit abrupt and presumptuous when I said I wanted to recruit him to the meat processing plant. How could such a talent be inferior to others in the future? While sighing, a circle came unconsciously. Wu Wei reported seriously, "Director Wang, I have a basic understanding of the factory building. I have the general data of the facade and the top. The specific situation inside depends on whether there are any special requirements for the production line you introduced." Won Jun was very satisfied with what he said. He immediately decided, "Okay, this matter is handed over to you. The purchasing department is following the production line. I will let Lao Song inform you in time when there is specific news." After that, he added, "By the way, I heard that you just took over the small Western-style building project of Lao Song's family." Wu Wei nodded and said, Yes, if Director Wan has something to find me, you can send someone there to find me at any time, or let Master Zheng bring a message, it's all fine. When leaving the meat processing plant, Wu Wei rode a 28-bar bicycle, quite high-spirited. After negotiating the meat processing plant project, I felt more confident when I went to see my master tonight. I will take the opportunity to invite him to come out and preside over the event. I can be relieved, or at least half relieved. It's perfect. Compared with Wu Wei's high spirits, the fourth sister Wu Zishan, who was alone at home at this moment, was simply panicking. Since the death of their parents, there haven't been so many people in the house for a long time. They are all eloquent aunts and aunts, talking about finding a wife for their second brother. Wu Zishan was surprised and puzzled, with a lot of question marks on her forehead. A few days ago, my house was deserted and even a dog had to take a detour. How come the threshold was trampled through overnight? Zishan couldn't figure it out, but she didn't dare to ask more. Apart from busying around serving tea and water to these aunts and aunties. No matter who asked, she would just give a simple answer. The third sister will be back soon. If you have any questions, you can ask her then. When Chen Yuejuan arrived, she looked at the scene in the fence yard. She was stunned, but soon figured out the whole story. But what puzzled her was the matter of Wu Wei's success. They just learned about it last night. How come it became a big deal overnight and everyone knew about it? Who leaked the news? After greeting the guests in the house, Zishan hurriedly went outside to get some fresh air and see if the third sister was back. As soon as she looked, she found Chen Yuejuan who was lingering outside the courtyard. Auntie Chen, why are you here too? Having run to the Chiao family compound many times, Zishan naturally recognized Chen Yuejuan. Being discovered, Chen Yuejuan no longer hesitated. She took the opportunity to pull Zishan aside and asked, "Child, what are these people doing here?" Zishan said without hesitation, "They are all here to propose marriage to my second brother," as if they had made an appointment. Sure enough. Chen Yuejuan's heart skipped a beat, and she turned to ask, "Is your third sister not at home?" "Yes," Zishan nodded, "my third sister goes to the county every day to sell fake collars, and she won't be back until noon."